Hello, my name is Amelia Bailey and today I will be talking about the concept of white privilege. In order to create a deeper understanding on the concept, I will be utilising a visual art piece by Indigenous artist Vernon R. Key titled If I Was White. But before we get to that, let's take a look at what white privilege actually means. White privilege can be defined as invisible benefits, advantages and opportunities experienced by white persons in society purely because of the colour of their skin. Peggy McIntosh likens white privilege to an invisible, weightless knapsack of special provisions, maps, passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools and blank cheques. White privilege is distinguished from prejudice or racism as people may not even recognise that they have it. This, however, is part of the problem. It is easily unconsciously exploited and as a result, Indigenous peoples are often oppressed. Ivan Clark, an Indigenous Australian, shared his story to the public and within this he mentioned some examples of white privilege that he personally had been affected by. Clark states, "I would love to know what it's like to walk into a supermarket and not be singled out or looked at by security because of the colour of my skin. I'd love to be able to walk down the street with a group of my brothers and not be isolated or singled out by the police as a result of the colour of my skin." White privilege is not having to think about these small everyday situations. White privilege can be a difficult concept to understand. However, Vernon R. Key created an art piece that exemplifies it really well. Vernon R. Key is described as a conceptual artist who creates contemporary pieces exposing degrees of underlying racism in Australian society. His confronting text-based work titled If I Was White consists of 30 small texts. Each piece of text represents a time or situation where he or other Indigenous peoples have experienced discrimination, oppression, or have suffered general disadvantage purely because of the colour of their skin. Now, instead of just stating the occurrences, however, R. Key flips the situation and states what would have occurred if he were white. A general example is, if I was white, I could live, shop and socialise wherever I want. Some of the texts also have thought-provoking explanations below. This one, for example, included, if you walked into real estate agencies where houses and units to let suddenly become taken and just to suddenly become available when you leave, then you know what I'm talking about. A more confronting example is where he states, if I was white, I would not have to live in a country that hates me. If I was white, I would have a country. By presenting the situations in such a confronting way, white Australians are forced to acknowledge their white privilege and consider how they may have taken advantage of it in such a way that causes further oppression upon Indigenous Australians. The final piece of text states, but I am black and I am as misunderstood as the next black fella, but I am beginning to understand the white man. Reading those final words almost feels like a big mirror is being held up and you can't help but reflect on your own actions or even things you've witnessed. This piece provokes thought over things typically unthought of, such as who is being valued and devalued in a shopping centre, a place considered to be safe? Who is being excluded in the creation of flesh-coloured band-aids that only come in one colour? Who is being silenced or having their every word questioned purely because of the colour of their skin? White Australians, such as myself, have had the privilege of not having to think about these things. We have had the privilege of fitting into the norm of our society. Vernon R. Key created such a simple yet confronting piece with the intent that people would reflect on white privilege and acknowledge the oppression and deficit thinking towards Indigenous peoples that is still prevalent in Australia today. As teachers, we will have diverse classrooms and it is essential that we create safe environments for children from all backgrounds. Vernon R. Key used art to provoke thought and discussion on a really difficult concept. This is a tool that we can take into our classrooms in the future. After watching this, I hope you're all able to take a minute to reflect upon your own privileges. The more awareness and discussion is created about white privilege, the closer we will be towards an inclusive, equitable society free from deficit thinking and oppression. Thank you so much for listening.